You watch 100 Mile Drive, and today I have 2023 BMW eDrive35. That's the base version of i4, and that's exactly the same car you can currently get for $499 a month lease with some taxes and down payment. But the biggest question I have today is this a better car to drive than the Tesla Model 3 rear-wheel drive version that I recently reviewed on the channel? Let's find out. Now, some quick stats here on this i4 eDrive35. Now this car has 282 horsepower and it has a rear wheel drive all-electric motor. The current range of this car is around 252 to 270 miles. But the funny thing, the owner of this car showed me that at 100% charge he's only getting about 168 miles of range. Now BMW, is this the guy who's probably driving the car in a sport only mode to listen to Hans Zimmer's composition in the car? Or did you just forget to enable like 20 to 25 kilowatts of his battery? Something is wrong here. And if you're watching 100 Mile Drive for the first time, well, this is the channel where I say before you buy a car like this or any car, you need to drive it on the city streets, highway, and canyon roads for at least 50 to 100 miles to be able to answer the biggest question I'm answering on this channel is how does it feel to drive? And by the way, I'm gonna take for part one of this video this car on the city streets and highway and discuss how different it is compared to the Model 3 rear-wheel drive. And for part two of the video, I'm gonna take you to the canyon roads and tell you how different it's driving on the canyon roads. And oh boy, it is so different. You definitely don't want to miss part two. All right, let's go. And quick 60-second walk around of this BMW i4. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this front grille. It's one of those things where you kind of get used to it. I do like it though in an M4 setup as it looks more aggressive. Now this car has 18-inch gunmetal aero wheels, what BMW calls them. They actually look much better in person. And by the way, this car rides on 225 50 R18 18-inch wheels, and they're pretty comfortable. And guess what, they're non-run flat. You know why? Well, because BMW doesn't want to spoil your drive experience, because run flats are noisy and this cabin is supposed to be quiet. Now overall, this looks like just a regular 4 Series to me, nothing really different. They just took a 4 Series and sort of like converted it to an electric car. I really like in this Grand Coupe setup the way this hatch opens. It's very cool for loading stuff. A very nice option to have. All right, otherwise, you know, very similar 4 Series. And now let's do a quick door sound check. All right, that's pretty good door, pretty heavy. All right, now let's get on the inside. All right, getting on the inside of BMW i4, closing the door. Now I want you to have a listen on how it starts. It feels like, you know, I'm in Vegas, you know, put money in a slot machine and then just kind of engaged, activated. All right, so the first thing you see is, of course, is a curved screen. And in here in BMW i4, I kind of like this curved screen because it's an electric car and it kind of blends in really well. Very nice, high resolution. What they did here, of course, they moved all the climate control buttons into the screen. Now you have, like, you know, all the menus, climate menu, and you can configure different things. They also, of course, removed all the memory buttons, which, man, I love those memory buttons. This is my X3 M40i. I have so many things preset exactly the way I want, and it's just a push of a button. So they removed all that stuff here. And the funny thing is the shifter. You know, this is being an electric car, we have this, you know, still big knob. So it's like kind of, you can tell that they basically took regular 4 Series and converted it to an electric car. Otherwise, the quality is definitely a level above than the Tesla Model 3. I mean, BMW has been doing it for years, and anything you touch, whether it's the steering wheel, all the door panels, everything is very nicely molded. I mean, the car speaks quality. When you drive it, when you sit in it, you can tell it's like a sport, you know, Grand Coupe type of a deal. The seats are on the firmer side, yet they're very, you know, supportive. Tesla Model 3 has more comfortable seats. They're more plain kind of, but more comfortable. But the materials are for sure more luxury than the Tesla Model 3. Tesla has a more, you know, minimalistic approach, of course, which is a nice, pleasant cabin to be in. But it's the quality materials I think they should improve upon. All right, now let's go ahead and drive it. All right, and first I'm gonna drive BMW i4 in the city. I'm gonna put car in a sport mode. Just gonna listen to Hans Zimmer's sound and do some acceleration. All right, let's go. You'll probably listen more of this sound on the canyon roads as I'm gonna go a little, accelerate a little more. But here you go. Wow, it's quite interesting. I mean, for those who don't know, BMW basically hired some Hollywood composer to write this electric sound for them. And it sounds, I don't know, I'm like 50-50. So maybe the guy who owns this car basically is trying to listen to the notes in this song. That's why the range is showing so low in this car. All right, here we go, testing acceleration. All right, so this car does 0 to 60 in about 5.8 seconds. It's fairly quick, but it's not fast, certainly. I would say the Tesla Model 3 is quicker, not a whole lot quicker, but it is faster. Another thing to note is that this car weighs in almost 4,500 pounds, so it is heavy. The Tesla Model 3 weighs in at about 3,800 pounds. It's about 700 pounds different between the two base models. Here's a stop sign, one more acceleration. All right, stop, let's go. All right. It's funny, it's like in one way you accelerate and on the other hand you're listening to this electric sound and you're like trying to see all the notes in it, trying to hear. All right, so overall, personally, I feel like this is okay for most people, but I feel like I could have a little more. So now I'm thinking eDrive40 might be a better option, as it's a slightly more powerful but a whole 1 second faster than this model. But for most people, I guess this will be okay. That's just my personal preference. Model 3 felt like it would be like a 3.4 seconds faster than this one. Alright, there's a Ferrari incoming. Oh, it's coming really fast. Now, the other thing is brakes in this car and how they are different, between i4 and Model 3. Brakes in this car are really good. And one thing I do like is that BMW really puts the brake pads here, so the car feels like a normal car when you brake. Where Model 3 uses regenerative braking, and while I understand they try to, recuperate power back, but as a feel, it kind of feels like they should engage brake pads more, at least in the sport mode. Here, this car feels literally like a normal car. So, and another thing, in driver settings, I can go drivetrain and chassis, and I can adjust what they call energy recovery. And now it's set to medium, that's your regenerative braking. I can do high, and the car will basically turn into a one pedal driving. It'll do a complete stop, but then it'll roll a little bit. So it'll be like a regenerative with rolling motion. Or I can, set it to low and it'll be just coasting. It'll be just like a totally normal car, except Hans Zimmer, you won't even know you're driving an electric car because it'll be just coasting and you'll be just literally using your brake pads. And brakes in BMW are fairly good. So I think medium is good. Kind of gives you both worlds, right? A feel of both worlds. All right. Now let's go left. The next thing I want to talk about is steering. How steering in i4 differs than the Model 3. In Model 3, I discussed it's a go-kart like steering. It is super fast, super responsive. You feel like you're in a go-kart. Now in BMW, it's basically just like any other BMW, where it's weighted, it's responsive, but it's more balanced. It's more like relaxed, but when you need it, it is fast. But it's certainly not as quick like in a Tesla, even a base Tesla, not even the performance version. So unless you're driving like an M4 where there's even a quicker steering, otherwise most BMWs like i4, even the M Sport, will have a pretty balanced steering. It becomes faster in sport mode, engaging, responsive, but there's still a little wider radius turning versus the Model 3, where it just a small steering input already, car is turning. Like basically the car responds extremely fast. The Model 3 feels like, you can be it feels like it's always ready for twisty roads. It is that engaging in terms of steering, where BMW is more balanced, relaxed, because they are trying to address a wide range of audience, and they've done a lot of surveys. So BMW over the years, they mellowed things down quite a bit compared to what they used to be, where they used to be a lot more direct, responsive, a lot more engaging. So they've quieted things down quite a bit in their regular trims. But overall, it's a very pleasant, nice steering. Now, this car does not have AM Sport package. This is a regular package. So we have those regular wheels and obviously the regular steering wheel. I personally love AM Sport steering wheel feel. It's a little thicker, but nevertheless, this is not bad at all. Now, next, let me go ahead and drive on the bumpy roads and let's discuss suspension. All right, and now I'm gonna be driving in comfort mode, and let's talk about suspension. So suspension in this car is very compliant. Now this car is on the firmer side. Basically the 4 Series is like a sporty car, but the thing is, it's a heavier car. It's heavier than the regular 4 Series, and the suspension is very compliant. Like it really well glides over the bumps, even though the shock travel is on the shorter side. This car feels more comfortable than the Model 3 for sure. It feels also more premium. All the materials, the whole ride quality feels way more premium than the Model 3. Now, Model 3 is also fairly good for what it is, because I would even say now, a much better handling car than the BMW i4. i4 feels more mature car, whereas the Model 3 feels more engaging, more playful, more agile. And the suspension is firmer in the Model 3, although still compliant, although still fairly good. But the i4 suspension is even more compliant, more comfortable, and the fact that it's heavier compared to the regular 4 Series, like I said, that kind of adds an even more premium feel. So this car feels more premium. Now, for anyone who is okay with the firmer ride, but still compliant, comfortable ride, then the i4 will be pretty good. If you really want more comfort, I recently reviewed the 540i, and I was pretty surprised how comfortable that car was. So then wait for the i5, even though that's going to be another almost like $15,000 more, but I'm sure i5 will be even more comfortable than the i4. But I like kind of the style of i4. It kind of looks very modern, clean. Fairly spacious, I would say. It's not cramped, but at the same time, it's more engaging. Even though i5, I'm pretty sure will be engaging as well, because BMW can. The reason why people buy BMWs versus the regular cars is that they're able to make, let's say, a firm car. They are able to make it fun and comfortable. They'll make firm car more, compliant, more. It'll glide better over the bumps, so it'll give you that premium feel that you're looking for, compared to, let's say, Subaru or your Hyundai. This is the reason why you get the BMWs. So i4 suspension is fairly good, fairly comfortable, and driving around my local neighborhoods just to see how easy it is to drive in day-to-day life. Now, this car, I would say, compared to Tesla Model 3, it's gonna be easy for anyone who's not sure about transitioning to an EV, and you're like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be, if I have motion sickness. If you're hesitant to transition to EV, then this is the easiest car to transition, because there's literally no motion sickness at all. Even with the high regen setting, the way this car is set up, you don't feel it at all in your head. Where the Model 3, literally I had to drive for 2-3 days just to get used to that one pedal driving, and for some reason they removed the low regen setting in the Model 3, so it's only one pedal driving. Don't confuse it with stopping modes. The roll, crib, and all that, those are stopping modes. That's different. It's something you get used to, and then you're fine. But the BMW i4 will be an easy transition from anyone, you know, from the regular gasoline car to an electric car. Literally, like, it's just so easy to drive it. It's very compliant, fairly quiet, premium cabin. So it's a very interesting place to be in. All right, so let me go ahead and jump on the highway and we'll discuss if this car is good for long trips and what is the mid-range power in this car. All right, let's go. Okay, now I'm entering a highway. There's your electric sound and BMW. All right, now let's merge the highway. It's pretty funny, isn't it? All right, so it's actually very easy to merge the highway. I mean, that's one thing. Electric cars, it's instant acceleration. Now, one thing I noticed though, this car is tuned, even though acceleration is instant, they try to kind of mimic a regular car more. With Tesla, when you're driving Tesla, I mean, first of all, when I noticed there, and I mentioned that it feels like you're riding on a magnet. The whole low center of gravity and how it feels on the road is completely different than pretty much any regular car, including the i4. Also, the whole pickup there is so instant, and it is so engaging even with a little throttle input. Here, it's also engaging, it is also instant, but it feels a little different. It feels like it's taken from a regular car. But nevertheless, I think the way it's tuned here is just to provide you that a very compliant, very comfortable acceleration so that, you know, you'll enjoy that EV experience, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. All right, the main thing I want to talk about here is the sound insulation in the cabin, and I have my meter. Let's measure the sound insulation. We're going to go to 65 and let me measure. Wow, it's about 62. No, it's about 63. Yeah, it's fairly quiet actually. 63. And overall, yes, it does feel like it's a quiet cabin, maybe even more quiet than the Tesla Model 3. Like I said, this car feels also heavy, premium. You do feel like you're driving in this premium Grand Coupe. I was supposed to call it Grand Coupe, not sedan. So the BMW definitely offers that experience compared to the Model 3. Now, of course, the big downer, this does not come with the autopilot that the Tesla offers for long distance drive. Of course, you can buy that professional package, professional driving or driving assistance professional package, which is 1,700 more if you're pre-configuring the car. But if you're buying cars off the lot, in most cases, BMW does not include that package unless you are getting for a very, very highly loaded model, you know, with all the premium package and then the M Sport and none of that. It'll be like 60,000 plus for this car to get that. Whereas Tesla, pretty much all of them have the autopilot, which is very handy. Otherwise, it's a very, very comfortable cruiser, provided you have enough range. Otherwise, for long distance driving, this will be very comfortable, definitely. The next thing I like to do is do a test to overtake other cars. Now I'm still in sports mode because I want to listen to Hans Zimmer, and we're gonna try to just see what the mid-range power feels like in this car. Wow, what is this car in front of me? Yeah, it's adequate. It's not super fast, but the fact that it's instant, it's very adequate. Now this is Rizvani, some kind of Gizvani. I don't know if you guys know what this car is. Looks like Genesis or Aston Martin kind of logo. Never seen this car before. Anyway, the mid-range power is fairly adequate. Tesla feels faster. Tesla's mid-range power for some reason feels faster than this. Yeah. Otherwise, it's sufficient. I mean, all these cars is close to 300 horsepower, so it should be definitely sufficient to overtake any car on a freeway. All right. So basically, this is what I wanted to talk about on the city and highway. Now I'm gonna make a part 2 of the video where I'm gonna compare this i4, how does it feel to drive on twisty roads against the Tesla Model 3, and how different both of these cars. All right, that's gonna be part 2 of the video.